Always money in the banana stand. And he's
stand.
like, I guess we got to burn it.
We gotta burn
It has to be.
There's always money in the banana stand. No touching, no touching.
Oh, I love Arrested Development, man. It was one of those shows where, like, the chaos of the writers, you know?
Yeah.
And them writing it together, obviously, just to be in a round table on something like that would have been, you know, a fly in the wall, as all of the actors and the writers are all, you know, trying to do their bits and scenes that they think would be good for it, and putting it together would be pretty fucking baller.
Yeah, dude, for sure, man. Love to be in an environment like that.
So how do you? We're day 5 from hearing, 6 from hearing that Chet is out for the season. You I sent you a text message about this too, which I'll throw this in the question towards you. Is we applied for a $4.5 million injured player, which basically makes it so that Chet can't play at all during this season at all, right? And it allows us to keep an extra player. So now we don't have to cut one of those guys that we've been dreading to cut, you know?
Yeah.
So, this just sucks. It sucks losing Chet. But how do you feel now that we're day 6, day 5 of hearing this news? Are you still kind of like in numb control, or are you kind of like waking up and everything all right now?
You know, I never really had much trouble dealing with this. Like, when I saw the injury, I thought, like, I know they're saying sprained ankle, and I don't want to go around being like, this looks like more, but it looked like more. Like, the spot on his foot where he grabbed, the way he pulled up, like, I've seen people sprain ankles and not feel like, I mean, obviously, it's a tendon in his foot, but the way he grabbed at his foot was almost like he pulled a hamstring. Like, it was like he, you know what I mean? It's very specific.
Yeah.
Like, he knew exactly where it was. It wasn't like a particular role. When you watch the play a lot, I was just like, look, like,
have you twisted and sprained your ankle, like a high ankle sprain and a low ankle sprain before?
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, the moment that you sprain it, what happens? I mean, like, I've never seen somebody that hasn't sprained their foot that goes down immediately in tears. Like, there's a jolt of pain with a sprain, you know? Right. Like, with Chet's injury, there was a jolt of pain, but it was a different jolt. So I'm echoing what you're saying. It wasn't like this, like, falling on the ground, which we typically see with a sprained ankle.
Right, and I don't know, man. I just feel like, here's the deal. Like, we love the Thunder, and as long as the Thunder, you know, continues to be the Thunder, right, and they're in Oklahoma City, like, our loyalty to them is going to be unquestioned. So my thing is, when I saw this thing happen with Chet, right, like, I don't know. Like, think about it last year when Giddey went down and he sprained his ankle. Didn't you kind of almost think, okay, we might miss the whole season of Giddey? Like, as soon as he sprained his ankle, it was just kind of like, we're in this ultra cautious mode. We're not in our championship window. And if a young player ends up having an injury that could risk his career, we're not going to fuck around with that shit. So, and even if it was our window, we wouldn't. But
that's what I was going to say.
Like, I just feel this sense of, like, we're in a really good spot for our rebuild, for our growth, for this team to continue to improve. And if, like, I get this obsession with we could get a high pick. Okay, great. But take away Chet from this last draft and look at what we were able to do with the other 3 picks. You know, take away Josh Giddey from the last draft and look at what we're able to do with the other picks, which also happened to be 3. Like, what we're looking at is a team that's finding a way to, you want to build at the top of the draft, but if you only get players that are worth building from the top of the draft, then, well, you're either going to have to wait 8 to 10 years to be good, or you're going to end up having to just kind of restart, and we see teams like the Timberwolves never quite get there. So I look at it like, not like, okay, this moment, like, this feeling, I've never, like, since it happened, I've never been really caught in the emotion of the moment. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like, our goal is to see this team win championships in the next 10 to 15 years, not championship. And the right move here for that plan is all I'm looking at. If we were like, okay, well, we're going to see if we can get him back 2 to 3 months in, then I would be, like, very fearful. But with, I don't know, I just hadn't seen anybody say, this is the type of injury that is going to hamper the rest of his career.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I mean, some people question, but
the most I've heard is like a surgery that's semi-successful is an instability of the ankle, but it's still something you can stabilize with ankle braces and so on and so forth. Like,
right.
I mean, like, that's the thing about it. Like, yes, this injury could be something that, you know, hurts his career for the rest of his life. But the reality is that, you know, this is an NFL injury. And if he was playing in the NFL, they would say a year off, and then he'll be back, and he'll be back at 100%. So why does that change for basketball? And it shouldn't, because there's the same cuts, there's the same movements that a running back would have to do, or a wide receiver would have to do. So, you know, for me, like, again, the more we get into it, and I know we've been talking about Chet a lot, but it's just because it's what's on everybody's mind. You can't help but look up Oklahoma City Thunder, and the first 12 articles are all about Chet. Articles like, would Oklahoma City make the playoffs if Chet was playing, or different things like that. And I get it. Like, we can say this or that, but let's just go through this again. Sam Presti traded away our draft picks for next year. Okay, first of all, except for our own. And listen, he'll probably, if he wants to, he'll wait until the day after the draft, and he'll trade that, and that way we can keep on the longevity of how many draft picks we can trade. So there's certain things that we're going to be looking at through the next few months or whatever. But the Thunder, let's just say they end up with a top 10 pick, man. Like, let's just say number 8. Number 8 this next year is going to be like number 16 or 18 in 2022, so this year that we just passed. Okay, 16 or 17. Okay, I understand there's people like, oh, this person's so good, this person's so good. Yes, I get it, guys. Go look at those guys. They're phenomenal, but they are all very, very small. Like power forwards that are 6'7". Okay, guys, like this is what. Yes, there's a need for those type of guys, but this is the top of the draft, man. This is what happens in the top of the draft, and those guys would have been pushed back towards 16 and 17 this last draft. So I look at this next draft and I keep on going through my head like, this is not the draft for us to have draft picks. So whether we use that draft pick or we use it for a trade bait for somebody else, it doesn't really matter, because our team that we have right now, we don't need to add anybody else. I mean, I'm not saying that if we're the 8th or the 4th worst team in the West, okay, and we won 32 games, and we're the 4th worst team, so we missed the playoffs by 3 games. Okay, Mark, I'm not saying that if we don't score the number 1 pick from there, right, that I'm going to be upset, because obviously the number 1 pick, in my opinion, is the number 1 pick. And if you ever have an opportunity for that number 1 pick, you got to get it, you got to roll the dice on that. And so I'm not saying that I would say no about that, but the reality is that this team that we have already, I don't know who I would take off of the team to insert a player from this next draft, other than maybe one, or there's a 6'2" guard that's the second best player this next year in the draft. Like, I just don't see us going to a 6'2" guard and inhibiting how we're trying to grow this team. So again, I don't understand necessarily all those people that are saying that the Thunder are going to tank for this year, because there's one player in this draft that I think is worth something, and everything else is kind of like, ooh, like could be good. Yeah, could be a Scottie Pippen 2.0 or whatever, but that's 5 years of hard work only to find out maybe. And that's why I consistently say it's the 2024 draft that we are so high on, that we are so excited about. And I think that should be one of those things that, like, we just look at. 2024 is also the year for Poku, and all these other guys are coming in for contract years. And those are the years that we decide if we're going to keep some of those guys or not. And we'll figure out how many draft picks we end up with there. But, man, I just don't get it when I hear another podcast get on and just ramble on about how we need this player from France because he's so good, he's so much better than everybody, he's 7'2", he can do all this other stuff, and I get it. But to roll the dice to tank another year to lose Shea, is it worth it for a 17-year-old or 18-year-old that, plays for France that we're still trying to get information on? And if we don't get him, and then we just tanked for no reason and we lose Shea. So where where is the fine line here, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. Like, there's going to be this talk about it because it's sort of like where the fans end up finding themselves when they're depressed and they're trying to pick themselves up, right? But like, for us to be sitting here and be like, look, we like the team we have. We believe in player development. We believe in the coaching staff and the group we have within the organization, and we believe in the organization. That's not sexy, bro. They're like, anybody who's listening to that, unless they understand, like, they really understand the game of basketball, they understand the fundamentals and they understand development, they're not going to think that that's cool. Like, unless you can understand Shai's trajectory and you've seen him become one of the best players in the league. But I know,
well, let me ask you this about
people
that.
who just have stopped watching over the last 2 years. So how could they know?
Let me ask you that, since you said the trajectory of Shai. Can Shai be an all-NBA player with the Thunder only winning 30 games this year?
No.
Okay, so
look, here's what you have to do.
This year is about Shai. You're playing for Shai.
Remember when Bradley Beal led the league in scoring and almost didn't make the All-Star game?
Yeah.
Right? Like that happens when you're like around 30 wins or lower. Like, it's not going to happen unless like somehow he is so transcendently good that people are saying that because he's this good and the rest of the team isn't that good, they should still give him the opportunity. But it doesn't work, man. They don't do that type of stuff. You look at the list of like the greatest players to never make an All-Star game. It's not because they were on teams that won 50 games and there were too many players that belonged. It was because they were the best player on a really bad team for 15 years or 10 or 15 years. You know, that's it.
Well, I think about, now that you mentioned it, I think about when Russ won MVP and we didn't make the playoffs or were the 8th seed or whatever bullshit that we were, and he averaged a triple-double, Yeah. And everybody was like, he doesn't deserve it. He didn't help his team win, like.
Yeah.
And
if we had been the 10th seed,
and
there was no playing game, like if we had been the 12th seed, like I don't know, like, you have to win to get people to care. Like, so I get it. Like, all these people are like, all right, we're gonna lose another year. They're missing out. They're missing out on something really awesome that's happening in front of us. And
can you see a situation where the Thunder are around 500 at the All-Star break?
Yeah, I could. It's going to take a level of play that we haven't seen in a couple of years, but we did see it with Chris Paul. And
so
Shai
you think we can be something like 27 and 27?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many. I don't think there's that many games before that.
I think it's like 50 games before the All-Star break.
I don't think so. I think they usually pull the All-Star break before the halfway point.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but you know what? That's right, because we were 1 year where 20 and 20 at the All-Star break.
Yeah, it's a little bit early, but I don't know, man. I think that if Shai is the player that I believe he is,
that we believe
he is, like, going out there and being a top level player and letting the team lose isn't acceptable. Like, he wants to win and he wants to play at a really high level in doing that.
Sure.
But it's not that he's going to choose to play at a high level and also see this team lose as a result. So, like, I get it. Like, but I also wonder, like, why everybody is so sure that Chet was that big of a difference maker when our team already was demonstrating forward progress. We have the young stars, and now it's like, now we're not going to win as many games as we won last year. Why not? We have
even
the same team plus.
Even beforehand, people were guessing that we would win 18 games with Chet and 21 games with Chet.
It's because most people aren't paying attention, bro. And they look at how many wins a team had last year, and they figure that's the best way to guess how many they'll have this year. And you know what? Most of the time, they're right. Yep. But there are certain exceptions. Occasionally, like from 2009 to 2010, the Thunder went from 22 or 23 wins to 50 wins. Like, sometimes teams will make major leaps. And these people who look at last year's record and then do the same thing for this year, they'll be right 9 out of 10 times. So that's good enough for them. But there's always teams that make a leap. And, of course, we think that our team is ready to make the leap. With Chet, we think we would have been a serious contender for the playoffs. If we ended up with the All-Star break around 20 wins, that's actually kind of consistent with what we've had over the last 2 years. Like, we raced to 20 wins 2 years ago, right? And then we stopped winning. Like, it was a complete, after the All-Star break, like, I remember I was in Rhode Island with my nephew who was checking out University of Rhode Island, showing him around the campus and stuff like that. And, like, we lost a game, and it became very apparent that we weren't going to be competitive for the rest of the season. I think we were playing the Raptors. The Raptors weren't particularly good, and we were competitive for, like, I think a quarter and a half, and then it was just like, boom. Yeah. And then there was a game against Memphis. It was a similar situation. We competed for maybe 2.5 quarters, and then they beat us by 25. And it was just like, all right, this team, without Al, without George Hill, without this, like, we can't compete against these teams. But before we got to that point, bro, we had like 20 wins, I think.
Yeah.
And the 18 wins, 20 wins, and then last year, similar thing. We're cruising. Like, we're like going to the All-Star break. We're not seriously thinking about the playoffs unless we get on a really crazy run. But I think around the All-Star break, we had 15 wins range. And then from there, Shea, you know, we were like 10 games till we get Shea back, the All-Star break, and then we get one game of Shea and Giddey, and it was over. And then you look at it like, all right, so could we be somewhere near 500 around the All-Star break and also not get close to the playoffs? Yeah, because the way that things go, 1 injury, 2 injuries, a shutdown, a trade for great value, we pick up a dead contract, we trade out an expiring contract, and we get a pick. Like, all of a sudden, like, things could really change. So we know, we believe what Sam Presti, right, when he says every year we enter with a chance to let the team define themselves, and then at a certain point, you decide, are we going to make a push or are we going to lean into player development? And some people will want to define it as much more cynical or sinister than that. Like, they're like, no, this team is doing the thing that the NBA should outlaw. Like, they'll want to go out of their way to act like the Thunder are somehow, you know, bending the rules to make it work. But the reality is, name which player that's young, that's too talented, that we've decided to trade away to ensure that we're bad. Because when you talk about the thing that you and I hate the most when it comes to losing intentionally, it's undermining the fan base and getting rid of players that have the potential to help your team win, especially when they're young, and moving those players on. I don't mind moving an older player who can help your team win. You look at the Sonics and the way that Sam Presti got ready for the first great team, and that was a big part, trading away Rashard Lewis and Ray Allen and these established NBA players, and then drafting really well and giving those young players opportunities. So anybody can call that whatever they want, right? But what I call that is the blueprint. So if you want to just label it a tank, or not you, but somebody else wants to, that's fine. But I say this is the way, you can be competitive now and in the future. And you may not be as competitive now, but that's fine as long as you reach it in the future. Yeah. But, like, I get it. Chet's out, and everybody's going to start using the T word. Well, let them. I don't care. You know what I want to see? I want to see daily improvement. I want to see this team get better. You know what? Since Chet's injury, that has not changed at all. That's exactly what I wanted to see before the injury. That was what I wanted to see before we drafted Chet. It's what I wanted to see from Josh Giddey last year, and I want to see it again this year. And we've seen it with Shea every year. We've seen it with Coach Dagnall every year. Lou Dort has been rewarded with a big contract, and we have a bunch of guys who want to go out there and play their ass off. And you know what? Kenny Hustle, every team is talking about, maybe we should get Kenny Hustle. Maybe we should get Kenny Hustle.
I know, every team.
Why? Because they understand the value of having players like that, and we're chock full of them. And I'm sorry if they're not going to live out some random Okies wet dream and decide to lose on purpose, but this team isn't laying down. They're going to fight. And we're going to be here, like we always are, talking about it. And now we've got a YouTube channel, bro, where we put up a few episodes. They're crummy. But I also say, right around the corner, bro, we got something special. We're hoping to be dropping... should I tell them, bro? Or you
man, let's just wait. Let's wait till we do it.
All right, man. I'm just gonna.
Let's wait till we do it, because when we do it, I think it'll be fun, because we got enough listeners out there that we know that they'll be popping on and
fucking blow your mind.
Man, but like, I don't know. I look at this, and I think that this is Shea's year. And Shea has to come out here and come out on fire. And if he gets injured, that's when we will know. You know what I'm saying? That's when we'll know. We'll know, okay, this year's going to be a chill year. But
dude,
if Shea doesn't get injured, let's just talk about it.
Injured, but he had plantar fasciitis, which is an injury.
Sure.
Right? There's a balance. Like, he doesn't have to break a fucking leg to be like, hey, we want him in a better shape next year. Plantar fasciitis is a perfect example. So I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're good, dude. I was going to say, knowing how good Shea is, knowing what he can do, I know he's going to have games of 40 or more points this season. How many can you predict that he has 40 in?
Well, I think I'm just guessing off the top of my head, bro.
I'm writing it down just to let you know.
I'm thinking he had 3 last year.
Yeah, something like that.
What do you think? All right, so 10.
You go for 10. All right.
Well, here's
I like
the
it,
thing.
dude.
It's a crazy number.
It is a crazy number.
I look at it with
crazy number. If he does have 10, that means he's broken 50 a couple times. How many times does he break 50?
Twice, at least.
Twice. Okay.
Well,
all right. I can see that.
He can do that. The question is this: how much does the transition to the 2 affect how many shots he gets?
Dude, this is the offense we run. It's part of it. You come down, pass it, boom, boom, boom. It doesn't matter if it's a 2 or 1.
Okay, but you're right. You're right. But here's the thing. At the point, you say you come down, you pass it, right? And then boom, boom, boom. He goes from being the first, he initiates it, the offense with a pass, to he receives the offense and initiates the offense with putting the ball on the floor. He's better putting the ball on the floor when he's on the perimeter versus full court. He can handle the ball full court, and if I was coach and I had no point guard, I'd be happy to put Shea there and I would never question it. But if you can move him up the court and then say, hey, you're going to be catching the ball in the transition more, we want you attacking downhill in those, like, okay, add 4 easy points a game. That's not many. That's 2 buckets a game. Well, that's actually significant when it comes to, your opportunities for, I don't know, to go from 22 to 26 points. That's a big deal. So I just feel like we're sitting here in the spot where, like, I'm hoping
can Shea lead the league in free throws? That's how I feel like he's going to break it to 40 and 50. Can he lead the league in free throws?
He should be in that conversation. Dude, he should be in every elite scoring conversation. In the history of the league, since I've been watching, it goes back much further, but you can go back to like Wilt or whatever. But since I've been watching, if you can average 28 points a game, then you are top tier scoring, no questions asked. Somebody might go out and average 35, right? There's years, whatever. But if you can average or like Beal or whatever, but like if you can average anywhere near 28, do it consistently. Year in, year out, you're going to end up leading the league scoring a few of the years because some people won't be as high. You're not going to lead it every year, but on a long enough timeline, you're going to end up being elite. And we've heard people say this, like, the difference between being like really great and just really good is the ability to be really good over and over and over again consistently. Yeah. And we know Shea has the ability to be great, but being great and the ability to being great is there's a big difference, and he has to put it on every day. We saw him after the All-Star break, but how many people were watching?
Yeah. You're right.
Enough.
You're right.
But we saw him go for, I think he averaged 30 after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think he played, was it 16 games or something like that, 20 games in a stretch, and then they pulled him the last 10. And
then we saw him play for Canada, bro. Oh, he's better.
Bro. Okay, all right, you brought it up, and I wasn't going to say anything about what's happening over there, but, man, when I say over there, I say across the pond for all you military people across the pond or across the great ocean or the big blue, whatever you want to say. There's going
the big blue wet thingy.
European basketball going on right now. World championships.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh. Some insane numbers are coming out. Like Giannis had like 55. Jokic has crazy numbers.
I see what you're saying.
Then last night, I witnessed Luka go off for 66 points.
Really?
And a loss. Dude, this is what's going to happen to Luka the rest of his life. He's going to be one of the greatest players in the NBA of this generation, and he's with the Mavericks, and they're not going to be able to get the personnel around him to get a championship. And it's going to suck for him because what's happening here with his, country and him scoring 66 points and not getting the win, it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah. Shit, dude, for sure. Coming out
we'll take
the
him.
playoffs.
Send him to Oklahoma City. We got a couple draft picks that we can give him.
It's a mess. It's a mess, but you saw Gallo tore some cartilage?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Boston just, now they're hurting, but you got to hurt for Gallo there.
I like Gallo too, man. He helped us out that year, and I think that when we were able to trade Carmelo Anthony and receive, what was it, Gallo and Schroeder and a first-round pick or something?
No. It was, Gallo came over with Shea.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. I'm sorry. You're right. Because we traded Gallo to the Hawks.
Atlanta.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. It was Gallo, Shea, and then all those draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, I never could figure out what Atlanta was doing. They had so many shooters and they couldn't figure out how to use them. But whatever, like,
dude, they decided to go old school. They went and got centers and pick and roll guys and centers that defend instead of going like straight up like Dub City, man, Dub Nation, and going all shooters. I mean, dude, I thought the Hawks had something special because they could just shoot the ball from anywhere, And then they just decided to get centers.
You think Murray will help him? You think that's a good one?
Oh yeah, dude. He has that fire. He's going to help Young, man. Trae Young needs that. If you look at Trae Young's career, he needs somebody to help him out. So many guys like are assholes to Trae Young in the league, and they're bigger and stronger than him, so they can. And now that he has Murray, he's got his, Murray has a chip on his shoulder. He's not going to let anybody fuck around with Trae, He's going to treat Trae like a little brother. It's just going to be great. Great for Atlanta Hawks, man. I mean, especially if they have a coach that knows what he's doing and how to run an offense that's going to produce what they need. Man, yeah, Hawks did a really good job picking up Murray.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they went for Shea first, right? That was their first push, was to see if they could get Shea.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, okay, this is back to all of our people that were talking. If this was a tank year, right, we have to consider the 4 or 5 draft picks that Atlanta Hawks gave up.
They were going to give us more than they gave up.
That's what I'm saying. Right? You have to stop and say, okay. Trae Young and those guys, can they figure it out? If they can't figure it out, then this gold is like platinum. Like this stuff is going to be so valuable, it's not going to be funny. That's why I stop and say, if the Thunder wanted to trade Shea and they were looking at the situation saying, you know what, let's keep this draft pick thing going on and keeping our young guys, our 20-plus-year-olds happy, right?
Yeah.
They would have traded Shea and walked away with an enormous amount of stuff in return.
As much for Shea as they got for Paul George.
I think in the long run it would have been more, because I think we could have, the couple young players that San Antonio got in return. Like that's big for the San Antonio. Like we would have been the same way. And I look at it like this: is that if you're looking at Murray versus Shea, what's the difference? Well, Murray made an All-Star.
Yeah.
If you ask all the executives in the league, Murray or Shea, I mean, guarantee you 90% of them are going to say Shea. Even though Murray is an All-Star, but it's Shea that makes people stand up. It's Shea that, like, how many times when we heard Shea was getting traded to the Thunder, how many times did we hear it's not if he wins a championship, it's how many championships Shea will win.
Yeah, I don't remember that one actually.
Oh, dude, okay. Who was it? When we got traded, it had to be Katz, dude. It had to be Katz on ESPN. And he was breaking down Shea's game. And he said, it's not if he wins a championship, it's how many he's going to win, because he has that it factor. And we've all been saying it for all this time about that it factor with Shea.
Yeah.
And I keep on going back and I keep on looking at Shea and I see how he can play and how he can lead. And that's why I say you give Shea the reins here and you say, we have players that we put around you that are going to make your game look better, that are going to make you look better. I mean, think about J. Will. Think about JRE. Think about Josh Giddey taking the load off of Shea's back for a little bit. You got Dort helping on defense, taking that load off there. Shea, this team is built around you. You do what you want to do. Kenny Hustle and all these other guys are going to step up for you and get things done as well. Like, I understand that we can say that, Shea could average 28 points a game, but why can't he average 33, 32 points this year? Because he's that type of player. And yes, the offense is the way it is, but Josh Giddey isn't a selfish player. He's not a pass or a shoot first point guard. He's a where's Shea point guard. I need to get Shea the ball. And that right there means that Shea's going to get open three-pointers all the time. He's going to get open drives. He's going to get open dunks. He's going to get whatever Shea wants, because that is the type of point guard the Oklahoma City Thunder has cultivated with Josh Giddey as making Shea better. And that's why I keep going back and I keep looking at this and I keep saying, like, can Shea go out there and just dominate the NBA and make it so that this Oklahoma City Thunder team are in that top 8 playoff positions, allowing everybody to take a step back and be like, okay, next year when they get Chet, they're going to be filthy. Yeah. And that's what we want. We want fucking respect. And respect comes with a lot of hard-nosed basketball and a lot of gut. We got the hardest schedule in the league this year by a significant amount. And I'm telling you, they're not putting on paper what our hustle is worth out there.
Yeah.
And our hustle, the way that we hustle, I guarantee if we put it on paper, is worth 10 wins. Just off of hustle. So,
I mean, that's why I like talking about this shit with you so much, man. It's because it's like we could listen to all these people who think they know what they're talking about. They call themselves experts and they're on TV or whatever. But in the end, they're supposed to be doing the same thing we're doing, which is watching the games, watching what we have, and then trying to assess what this team can be. And I don't even like engaging with people. I don't mind reading articles, but usually halfway through, if they're, a certain tone, I just stop reading it because, like, when it comes to Thunder stuff, there's so much noise. And there's so many people who have opinions and they have what they want, right? And
it's their own agenda,
transparent. Right. At least we're transparent. Like, we want to see this team improve, and we want to see this team make it to the playoffs. Now, we wanted to see it happen 2 years ago. We want to see it happen last year. And then we want to see it happen next year.
But why is winning so important for us? And why is it not important for everybody else?
Well, I think that we're going to have a chance when this is all said and done, when this team is back in the playoffs, we're going to have a chance to look and say, we were able to rebuild, right? And we still have one of the elite winning percentages in all of sports, right? Like, these years will hurt our winning percentages, there's no doubt. But I think I've heard Sam Presti say that, like, before we started this rebuild process, we had a top 5 or 6 winning percentage across all sports, or at least the U.S. sports, right? Or major leagues. And so I'm sitting here thinking, if we can manage to avoid losing, most of the games, like in a situation where we have like 12 wins in a season, if we can get back to the playoffs, people will be like, oh, they tank. Let them. Because in the end, we're going to be sitting there saying, we still have an elite winning percentage. We understood the value of getting down and getting back up. But you can call it whatever you want. We've just decided that out of respect for the players and the organization, there's one word we will never use when it comes to this. And it's because this rebuild process is unique. And to try to put it into terms of everybody else's mentality about it, it's asinine. So we're going to sit here and say it's a rebuild, and we're students of the game, and we want to see what Sam Presti has in store for us. And we're not going to take it any further than that.
But you're right, though. We've been calling this a rebuild since day one, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, you guys are fucking idiots. And for good reasons, because if you look and you think that everything's pointing to a tank, then that's that. Right. But then we sit down and we hear that year Sam Presti's interview, right, halfway through the season or whatever it was. And he used the words that we've been using, like rebuild. This is, we don't consider this a tank. A tank is something different. This is called a rebuild. We go into it a blank slate every season, right? We heard that interview with Sam that time. And it was like everybody still used the word tank, right? And then all of a sudden, at the end of the season, Sam Presti gives another interview. And it was like he was so annoyed with the word tank after so many guys kept on using it. And you could tell the annoyance, right? And if you're a halfway intelligent person, you can tell that Sam's annoyed. So you don't want to keep on bringing that word tank up. So guess what happens? The lingo changes. Yeah. And it changes drastically. It changes to the point where people are just saying rebuild, 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 because they don't want to piss Sam off anymore. You know, like, and we didn't tank. Like, you can't tank for half a season and call it a successful tank. I'm sorry. You just can't. It's, we are injured. We don't have the players that we need to have out there in order to win games. So we have two ways. We can put injured guys out on the floor, or we can play without those injured guys and try to get them healthy. And that's what we've been doing. It's called a classic rebuild. You take what you've given, you redeal your hand, and then you just go play with the players that you got. And that's why it's important that we continuously tell you guys this, is because we're going to get through this year, and at some point we're going to go on a losing streak, right? It's inevitable. You know, this is a young team. We're going to go on a losing streak, and it's going to be like all these little people in the back of your mind, and little voices are going to start saying tank, 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 and you're going to start seeing all Twitter start talking tank, right? But we all know what's happening. We all know that this team is going to bounce back, that this team is not going to roll over. This is a bunch of fighters, man. Like, this team has been designed to go out there and out-hustle, outplay, and outmaneuver intelligently every opponent. And that's what we're going to see this year. It's going to be a chess match, and I think we have the right coaching staff there. We've got great defensive coaches. We've got great offensive coaches. And I think we're just going to go out there and hustle. And you know what? If we win 24 games this season, it's only because we got injured, and we had a lot of injuries. And if that's the case, it's still a fucking successful year because we didn't tank. You know? And that's as simple as that.
Well, I mean, I think, tanking requires, in my opinion, now there's different definitions and anybody can have their own, right? But it requires, like, getting rid of players that would help you win. Not sitting them because they have injuries. I'm talking like the way the Sixers did it, right? The process tanking where it's like, oh, look, we have this good player. Gone, 2 picks for him. Gone, 2 picks for him. And they just kept pushing it down the line. Like,
sure.
I get that fundamentally, if you're just looking at this from the outside, it seems like, well, this could be the same thing. It could be because you're looking at the records. But if you look at the movements, the things like extending Kenny Hustle, getting Dort that contract, making sure that Giddey is, coming along the right way, like hiring an assistant coach to help him with his shooting and stuff like that, like all this.
You think that was a Josh Giddey move, or you think that was a team move?
Of course it was a team move, right? But of course it's a Giddey move. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I wish we could have had him before, right? I wish that it didn't require this, but at the same time, dude, we saw Giddey's shot at the summer league, and it was like, all right, here we go, another year. But then we got this coach. I feel like he's going to be able to help Giddey out as much as anybody on the team.
See, I watched.
It'll be team wide.
I watched Josh's mechanics in his shot, right?
Yeah.
There's very few things that I would ever want to change with his shot. Very few. And I think that's the thing about it, is that I've seen so many NBA players come up that I'm like, bro, I need like 6 years with this guy in the gym to change his shot, or at least, get a better shot. I mean, think of Reggie Miller, one of the worst shots in history, or worst looking shots in history. Yeah. Like, you say that with some players, but I see Josh's shot, and I see a successful mechanical shot. So all you got to do is tweak it. All you got to do is those couple of tweaks, which obviously when you get a guru like we did from San Antonio, man, it's not going to take much for Josh to become a 36% shooter, 38% shooter from 3, and
just shooting it with confidence in game situations, and then going back and practicing it in low pressure situations, which we've seen as a team a commitment to having these players shoot the shots. And we believe that they're doing the background work to make those shots in games, good shots later. So yeah, dude, I mean, it's progression. It's going to happen a little at a time. I mean, but the way we look at it is we're not going anywhere. Like, it sucks not having Chet out there, but mostly for Chet. Like, our goals as fans of this team remain the same. I remember when Russ was out there, like you mentioned, his MVP season, a couple years before his MVP season, where he was out there all by himself, it seemed like.
Yep.
I don't remember anybody saying, hopefully we don't make the playoffs so we get a better pick.
No, now, dude, we hate it. There's maybe one or two voices saying that we deserve to get a better pick. But everybody's like, fuck this dude, you know?
Yeah, and it was like, all right, Russ is going to go out there and put on a show. Well, I get that a lot of people don't think that we're in a similar place where we could be competing for a playoff spot and it could be the Shea show. But we have more depth than we did back then. And we have Shea, who I think is a much better team player than Russ was. And, Russ is a little bit further.
You can't say Shea is a better player than Russ from what Russ was like 28 that season and Shea's 23.
But better team 24. Player, I would say.
Well, I was going to say, like, the only reason I'd say that is because if you look at Shea and you look at Westbrook and their equivalent years, you got to tip your hat at this point to Shea, because do you remember everybody saying that Oklahoma City made a mistake with Russ? First of all, picking Russ there. Second of all, putting him as point guard, he should be a shooting guard. Like there was, for the first 4 years of his career, it was all shit, And that's why you got to nod your hat to Shea in the beginning, but it becomes that switch, man. If he can switch from that year 4 to 5, that's where it's going to start coming in,
Shea is so smooth and Shea is so cool, you know what I mean? But in the end, if you're going to lead a team that is blue collar, that is underrated, that has no chance, according to Vegas, to the playoffs, like, it's not going to be through being cool. It's going to be dirty. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be nasty. You're going to have to get it through the trenches. So I believe Shea can lead us through that.
So you believe in Shea?
I believe in Shea. I believe in this young group. But, I mean, I've been impressed of the last 2 years. Like, people would say, oh, you want to make the playoffs? We didn't make the playoffs. You must have been disappointed. Hell no. I saw each year teams that had more talent, more young talent than I expected. And then we at the same time, we had great opportunities to win games early, and then we shifted to, player development. Like, I like that. Yeah. Like, just because I want to make the playoffs does not mean that I'm against that. That's actually really, really good for the long-term hopes of a franchise. So, yeah, we want to make the playoffs, but we also want to see young players develop. So, no matter what happens, we're going to be really optimistic.
Yeah, and like we said, we're 15 deep. We still believe we're 15 deep. We might be only 14 deep at the moment, but we are 15 deep as a team. And because of that, that's going to allow a lot of our starters to get a few more rest a game, a few more minutes rest a game, which really is big in the long run, especially in an 82-game season. It allows these guys to not get as tired, and really having a team that is all about heart. And that's what this team is, man. They put everything out on the court at all times. You talk about Shea and the blue-collar team. Like, Shea is that leader of sorts, that he leads the team, but the rest of the guys are the backbone of this entire team. And they're all the guys that are working hard, doing whatever it takes to get that win. We've seen Dort do it. We've seen, Giddey do it. We've seen these other guys, JRE, do it. Like, these guys are going to come out. Kenny Hustle are going to come out and have career years. And you put that in with Shea's career year. Listen, like, I understand people want to put us in a box and say, 25 wins, but this is a team that could win 45 wins this year still. I mean, they could surprise everybody and pull off 50 wins if Shea comes out as an MVP season. And that's the thing about this team, is that putting him in a box is just silly at this point, because we really have no idea how we're going to match up against other teams with our offense the way it is. Like, we added 4 rookies, 3 of them will play this year, and those 3 guys are phenomenal players. Jang, right, J-Dub, and Jay Will. These guys are incredible athletes, players, and team guys. Like, we don't know how good J-Dub's going to be. He could come out, man, and he could just surprise everybody in averaging 18, 19 points a game his rookie year. Like, we don't know how good J-Dub's going to be. We don't know how good Jang is going to be. We hear all these Oklahoma City Thunder media and podcasts say that Jang should be sent where? To the G League for a while. And we don't agree with that because we don't know where Jang belongs. And that's where it's like, listen, this team is an open book right now. Like, yes, we could only win 25 games this year. And you're right, we could if we get injuries. But that's highly unlikely, to be honest, because there's going to be so many teams that are going to be tanking towards the end of the year and halfway through the year and even the full season. Like, I think we're going to play probably a good 20 games against teams that are tanking. You know, like, they're going to look at us as an easy chance to get a loss. As simple as that, because we're hungry. We want to get every win. If we have 20 games like that, Mark, you know, like, that means this team actually has a legit chance to get to 50 wins or even 40 wins. And to me, that's why we're going to continuously say what Sam says, and we're going to say we're walking into this season as there's an open book. You know, figure it out halfway through the year, and I think that's what it's going to be like. I think this team has a difficult schedule the first half of the season, and if this team could be somewhere around 500 halfway through the season, as the back end of our schedule will lighten up, I think it's going to be one of those things that, you know, as a city, we're just going to start embracing. As a fan base, we're going to start embracing it in a powerful, powerful way. So, yeah, man, I'm pumped right now.
Yeah.
And guys, check out our YouTube, guys. Like, we don't like to promote shit at all or anything else like that, but like, we're pretty ridiculously looking dudes. Like, I would say ridiculously good looking dudes, but I'll just put out ridiculously looking dudes. And I think it's kind of cool that we have something up here like this, because this is something that Mark and I are like, we're fucking never putting our faces out there because this is stupid. But here we are.
Yeah, dude, and I'm gonna move back to what you're talking about.
Oh, my bad.
But like, I lived in Denver when Tim Tebow was quarterback, and I am not a fan of Tebow's. Let's put it that way. But some of the most exciting times a fan base can have is when you're shocking the world and when you're not supposed to be good. And at that point, a lot of people talked about like the past great Denver Bronco teams where it was the Orange Crush, and there was just so much going on. I also lived in Denver when Peyton Manning led the Broncos to a Super Bowl. So and they won it. I mean, so both Super Bowls I was there for. But my point about all that is there was more energy behind the team when it was underrated and over-delivering than when it was a Super Bowl team, right? Because the first year they lost the Super Bowl, I believe, right? And then Manning went back and won it the second year. The pressure you have when you're supposed to win a Super Bowl is so heavy. It's almost like you can't enjoy the regular season because you either win a game that you're supposed to or you lose the game that you should have won, and it's like, shit. So this could be a special year for us where teams keep being like, how long can this go? This team is sort of like a Cinderella team in March Madness, right? And when will the clock strike midnight? And it becomes this incredible opportunity for the fans to unite, and you see people start busting out their Thunder gear again, and you're like, all right, like the whole city's buying back in. And that's what I'm hoping for this year, but we could end up getting stuck with 12 wins. But either way, we're Thunder fans, and we'll be there the whole fucking time.
Man, and I just echo what you said, man, is looking at this team and how it was built, as you think about through the years, is how many things had to go wrong in order for this team to be at where they're at. And how many more things need to go wrong in order for this team to be able to be the spot to win a championship. And you can say it vice versa. How many things have to go right? But the reality is that things need to go wrong still. We don't know what those are going to be. It's a 82-game season. It's a whole year. Things happen throughout the year that are freak accidents. And we just got to sit back. We can't control it. And we just got to sit back and enjoy it. Because if we don't enjoy it, we don't enjoy the process of how this team has been built, and we don't look at all the pain that we've gone through, we're not going to be able to enjoy the amazing fruit of what's going to happen with this team in the next couple of years. I think this year is going to be a great example of how to be able to be supportive for this team, but I think next year is going to be the year that we're all going to look at, and we're all going to be able to look back for many, many years to come and say that year was the beginning of something incredibly special in Oklahoma City. So stay tuned with us. We're not going anywhere. We love Oklahoma City. We love the people. We love the fans. We feel so appreciative of everybody out there that's continuing to listen to us through the years. We continually throw up episodes up there. We're crunching up there to be the second most episodes put out there as an Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. That's pretty kind of cool if you look at it. But the reality is we're just pumped to be able to talk to you guys and really just tell you what we think about this team, because that's all it is. It's our personal opinions about this team. And it's been fun to be able to see how our positivity with this team has been able to be producing as many fans of this team and people coming back and listening to us. So thank you again. And again, we'll be back on Wednesday, Mark, right?
That's right, man. See you then. Thunder up.